All right, today we're doing section 9.5. Our objective to find the volume of pyramids and cones. For our warm-ups, we are finding the volume of the 3D figures shown. So we are still going to be using those same formulas from 9.4. What type of solid is this first warm-up? A rectangular prism, good. So we are going to find its volume by taking what times what?
You have to put capital.
If you are writing the formula, the b better be capital, yes. Because the lowercase b stands for the length of a base of a polygon. We used that when we were doing our area formulas. So that is why I am being picky about the capital B. What shape is our base on number 1? A rectangle. That's why we called it a rectangular prism. Now on these, you get to choose which rectangle you're choosing to be your base. So what do we want? The top, the bottom, the front, the back, a side? So give me the dimensions of the base you're using. Which two side lengths are you using to make up your base? The big base, capital B. 20 and what?
8.
Okay, so that would mean we're using like the top part as our base. 20 by 8. So to find the area of that base, what are we going to do? What do we do with 20 and 8? Multiply them. 20 times 8 gives me 160. My units would be yards. Not cubed. Squared. So far we've just found the area of that base, which I went ahead and shaded in red. Now we need to know what the height of our prism is. What's our height? 3 yards. So to find our volume, we've got to take capital B, 160, times H, which was 3, and what do we get? 480. What are my units now? Yards cubed. Good. So that is our answer for that first problem on our warm-ups. Number 2. What shape is my base? A triangle. So to find the area of a triangle, we don't just take base times height. We've got to remember one other step. 1/2. So to find capital B, the area of our base, we have to take 1/2 times, what's the base of that triangle? 8. Times, what is the height of that triangle? 9. So what do we get for capital B? 36. My units? Feet squared. What is the height of the prism? No. 17. Remember, the height is the distance between our bases. So if my base is a triangle, the distance between those two triangles is the 17 feet. So to find my overall volume, I have to multiply my capital B times my H. What do we get? 612 feet cubed. Good. All right, on our last one, what type of solid do we have? A cylinder. So how do we find the volume of a cylinder? Pi r squared times what? H, good. It's still the area of the base times the height. The only difference really is that our base is a circle. So we just go ahead and use the area of a circle instead of using a capital B. What is my radius? 5 get squared times my height? 7. What is 5 squared? 25. So we've got to take pi times 25 times 7. You can do that all at once in your calculator. What do we get for our volume? What do we get? Approximate would be 549.8. That's when we multiply the pi to it and round. That's our approximate. Our units would be inches cubed. Now, our exact answer, if you prefer that, the alternative would be to have 175 pi inches cubed. That's when we don't multiply out the pi. Either one of those would be fine for me. All right, a pyramid is a three-dimensional figure. Three-dimensional figure with a regular polygon as its base and lateral faces that are identical isosceles triangles meeting at a point. We are also given the equation to find volume of a pyramid. V equals 1/3 times capital B times H. Again, our capital B represents the area of the base. In this case, that's the area of the base of the pyramid. And H represents the height of the pyramid. As you will end up seeing in some of our diagrams, the height of a pyramid is different from the length of one of the sides or edges of the pyramid. So the height of a pyramid is not usually found on an edge. It usually drops down the center of the pyramid from that top point. Very similar to how we found the volume of prisms, but we are multiplying by 1/3. Multiplying by 1/3 is the same as dividing by what? Multiplying by 1/3 is the same as dividing by what? Nope. Okay, let's do a little pre-algebra skill work here. I could put this over what number without changing it? A 1. When I multiply fractions, I multiply straight across. So 1 times capital BH is still what? Capital BH. Divided by 3 times 1 is 3. So if you would rather remember it as V equals capital BH over 3, it's the same thing. Multiplying by a third and dividing by 3 are the same. So you need to remember one of these. All right, our first example does not give us a picture, just words. Find the volume of a rectangular pyramid with a height of 12 feet and dimensions of the base 4 feet by 7 feet. I think there's a small typo, but that's fine. I put in a couple too many by's. All right. They did not give us a picture. We don't really need one. We need our formula. I prefer to just divide by 3. If you like the 1/3, that's fine. It's the same thing. First thing I need is to calculate capital B, or the area of my base. They said the base has what shape? A rectangle. And we find the area of a rectangle by taking what times what? Base times height. What is lowercase b, the base of my base? 4 times the height of my base. Careful. 7. So they said the height of the pyramid was 12, which means I need to use these dimensions, the 4 and the 7, as the dimensions of my base. So capital B equals what? 28. If I wanted units on that, they would be feet squared. Then we need capital H, not capital H, sorry, lowercase h is the height of the pyramid itself. They told us that was 12 feet. So these are the numbers that I need to plug in to my volume formula. 28 times 12 over 3. Now, if you like to cross cancel or reduce your fractions before you multiply them out, that's fine. You could reduce the 12 with the 3. You don't have to do that. If you want to just multiply out 28 times 12, you should get 336 divided by 3, then press divide by 3. What do we get as our volume?
112.
Units?
112
Feet cubed. Good. So whether you would reduce the 12 and the 3 before you started multiplying or dividing or not, you should end up with the same answer. As long as you're showing me what you're doing, it's fine. But I should see some sort of work on these. Questions on example 1? Are we ready for example 2? All right, find the volume of a triangular pyramid with a height of 6 inches and base length of 7 inches and base height of 8 inches. So again, we have to be careful about what units we use where. We again are going to take capital B times H divided by 3 to get our volume. But the first thing we have to calculate is capital B. What shape does our base have? It's a triangle. To find the area of a triangle, what do? What's our formula? Good. 1/2 little b little h. So they said that the base of our triangle was what? 7, and the height of the triangle is 8. Good. So the confusing part is getting the height of the pyramid confused with the height of our base. All right. When we take 1/2 times 7 times 8, what do we get?
You get 28.
28. Good. Again, if you want to take the half from the 8, then multiply to the 7, you can do that. If you want to use a calculator for the whole thing, that's fine. And our units for that part?
Inches cubed.
Careful. Squared. Capital B stands for an area. So our capital B is 28 inches squared. What about our height? Or our H for the whole pyramid? 6 inches.
28 times 6.
Good. So then we plug that into our volume formula. Capital B was 28 times our height was 6. The whole thing gets divided by a 3.
That's 468. No, never mind. Yeah.
Okay, so if we go ahead and multiply the top, we get 168. Still have to divide it by 3. What? 56. If you had reduced the 6 and the 3 here, and gotten 28 times 2, that still would have given you 56. So our volume is 56. My units? Inches cubed. All I do. All right. Now on 3, 4, 5, they are giving us diagrams instead of writing it out in words. So we have to identify what kind of base we have, the dimensions of the base, and also the height of the pyramid. We're still using the same formula. I'll write it up in the corner. Capital B times H divided by 3. On number 3, what shape does my base have? A rectangle. So to find the area, or capital B, what am I going to do? To find capital B. That's what I'm focusing on right now.
12 1/2 B times H. Little B times H.
Well, let's be careful. What did we say our base was? What shape? A rectangle. How do we find the area of a rectangle? It's just little b times h. Are we all okay with that?
Yeah.
Area of a rectangle, base times height. So we have to identify what number represents the length of my base. 12 times the height of my base. Careful. 4. Remember, when we're talking about capital B, if you need to, you could just highlight the shape that your base makes. That's what we're focusing on when we're looking for capital B. We would end up with 48.
Meters squared.
Good, meters squared, because we're doing area. Now, when we go to identify H as in the height of the pyramid, what is that? 9. Remember I said that height would usually be given down the middle of the pyramid from the point perpendicular to the middle of the base. So when we go to calculate our volume, we have 48 times 9. Good, divided by 3.
That's 144. 132.
Are we multiplying the top first? And then dividing by 3? Okay, so 432 divided by 3 gives me what?
144.
Do we agree with 144?
Mm-hmm.
Our units would be? Meters cubed. If we're focusing just on our base, you could trace over that triangle if it helps you. So, as somebody said, yes, our base and height would be 7 and 12. If we take 1/2 times 7 times 12, what do we get? 42. My units?
Yards squared.
Yards squared. Good. That's the area of just our base.
42 times 8.
We also need to know our height of our pyramid overall. What is it? 8 yards.
112.
We go back to our volume formula. Capital B times H divided by 3. We plug in those numbers that we just found for capital B and H. 42 times 8. Did anybody get that?
That's 336.
336. Good. Divided by 3.
112.
112. Our units.
Yards cubed.
Yards cubed. Questions about number 4? All right, let's move on to number 5 then.
Take a try.
What's the shape of our base? It's a triangle again. This time it's a slightly different looking triangle, but that's fine. It's still a triangle. So to find capital B, 1/2 times what? Little b. What's my little b for this triangle? 14. Good. That's the base. Times h for this triangle is what? 13. So when we take 1/2 times 14 times 13,
This 91.
91. My units?
Inches squared.
Inches squared. Wonderful. The h that I need is the height of the overall pyramid.
That's
11
11.
inches. So to find my volume, I'm going to use those numbers. 91 times 11, the whole thing divided by 3. What do we get for 91 times 11?
1001.
1001.
You get a decimal there.
You get 333.6.
Okay. 333, so that would, I would just round that to 0.7. My units?
Inches cubed.
Inches cubed. Good. If the directions are not specific, just round it to the tenths or the hundredths. One of those is fine. It usually will not round up to a whole number unless it's one of those special cases where it ends in like a 999 or something like that. Any questions about volume of pyramids? Very similar to prisms, except for that we divide by 3. So when we move on to cones, it will also seem pretty familiar. A cone is a 3-dimensional solid with a circular base and a curved surface that gradually narrows to a vertex, meaning that top point. That's what we would call the vertex. You do not need to draw out this little diagram of the 3 cones forming a cylinder. You will need the volume of a cone, 1/3 times pi r squared h, which again should look familiar. If you would instead like to write it as pi r squared h divided by 3, that's the same thing. Multiplying by 1/3, dividing by 3, same idea. All right, on number 6, we are asked to find, well, it doesn't state it, but I want you to find the volume of this cone. It has a radius of 3 inches and a height of 12 inches. What's nice about cones, much like cylinders, is that we can go straight to our formula if we're given the radius and the height. So we have pi times our radius squared. What's my radius? 3 times the height, which is 12. And all of this gets divided by 3 from our formula. So notice we're always dividing by 3, whether or not there's a 3 as part of our numerator or not. So pi times 3 squared is 9. And now it's up to you. If you want to leave the 12 over 3, that's fine. I kind of like to reduce these. Does anybody know what I would get if I reduce a 12 with a 3? A 4, and my denominator would be a 1. So I don't even have to worry about my denominator anymore. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You don't really have to. You should end up with the same answer in the end. 9 times 4 would give me 36. So an exact answer would be 36 pi. My units would be inches. Right. Cubed. This is volume. Did anybody get the approximate answer? 113.01 inches cubed. So if it doesn't say, you can choose if you're giving me exact or approximate. Exact means we leave pi alone in there. Approximate means we multiply it out and round. All right, we need to get through number 7. What's different about number 7 from number 6? Good. They gave us a diameter and not a radius. So I need to be able to know what my radius is from the diameter. It is 15. How'd you get that? Good. A radius is half of your diameter. So for our radius or r, we have to use a 15. We still use that same formula. Pi times my radius squared times the height of the cone is 7. The whole thing gets divided by a 3 from that formula. Now on this one, the 3 and the 7 are not going to reduce nicely. So that's fine. We probably are just going to want to go ahead and get an approximate answer. We have to square the 15 first. That gives us 225. So we can take pi times 225 times 7, press equals, then divide by 3, press equals again, and it takes us straight to our approximate answer of 529.8. That's not what I got. I think you're closer. I got 1,649.3. What would our units be? Centimeters cubed. Now we could get an exact answer if you got 525 pi centimeters cubed. That would be the exact answer. So if you were trying to give me that instead, that might be why ours didn't match. But if you're giving me the exact, you have to include the pi in there still. We will wrap up our other examples tomorrow.